On the afternoon of Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022, paramedic engine 728, rescue squad 703, and medic 703 were dispatched to the report of a personal injury collision in the intersection of Shady Grove Road and Frederick Avenue in Rockville. Upon arrival to the scene, MCFR crews found a two-car T-bone collision in the intersection with one seriously injured patient who was heavily pinned under the dashboard in the vehicle. The crew from Rescue Squad 703 stabilized the vehicle to begin extrication of the patient, while the officer of Paramedic Engine 728 assumed command. The driver of the engine assessed passengers in the second vehicle, and the remaining crew of the engine pulled the hand line. The patient was quickly extricated from the vehicle and packaged with C-spine precautions being taken for transport to suburban trauma. En route to the suburban trauma, a rapid trauma assessment was performed, and the patient presented with an obvious deformity to the left side of his forehead, a large laceration to the center of his forehead, a large laceration to his left upper extremity, bruising to the right side of his rib cage, and an open, bleeding left femur fracture. The patient was awake and alert, had cool, pale, and diaphoretic skin, and exhibited respiratory distress. The patient repeatedly told the crew that he needed to sit up because he could not breathe. Lung sounds were assessed and were absent on the right side. The paramedics worked together to consult with Suburban Trauma via EMRC, administer oxygen via nasal cannula, place 2 tourniquets to control the bleeding from the open femur fracture, obtain bilateral vascular access in the patient's upper extremities, administer lactated ringers, and perform a right-sided chest needle decompression. After the needle decompression, lung sounds were heard in the upper lobes but were still absent in the lower lobes. Upon arrival at Suburban Hospital, patient care was transferred to the waiting trauma team. The patient was reassessed, sedated, intubated, and stabilized. The patient was found to have suffered an open femur fracture, a patella fracture, bilateral rib fractures, a dissection to his descending aorta, a subdural hematoma, bilateral pneumothorax, he has some thorax, pneumothorax, with the placement of chest tubes, a zygomatic arch fracture. Due to the nature of the injury sustained in the collision, the patient was transferred to shock trauma in Baltimore. On September 10th, 2022, the patient had recovered enough to be transferred to a rehabilitation facility where he underwent intensive therapy. Thanks to the knowledge, skills, and abilities of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue and the excellent staff at Suburban and Shock Trauma, the patient was discharged home on October 11th, 2022.